The woman.
Hello and welcome to The Woman Show. It's a great joy to be here. As you know, we have an incredible subject online, but I won't say anything about that just now because I have in the studio, apart from myself, Ikanem Robertson, I have in the studio with me two excellent guests who are going to join me on this wonderful topic of sex, secrets, satisfaction and setbacks. I have with me my first guest, Jackie Colligan. You are welcome to the show. Jackie is a qualified counselor and psychotherapist with a specialist interest in addiction and also sex and relationship issues. Is that right?
That is right, yes.
Welcome to the show. I'm really looking forward. We've been talking about a lot of things before we got into here,
yes.
in the green room, as they say, about some of the experiences that you have had.
Yes.
So I'm looking forward to hearing more.
Thank you, yes.
You're welcome. And we also have a gentleman that was with me at the, was it the Master of Your Destiny 2017, which was an excellent occasion at which he spoke. His name is Professor Rotimi Jayesini, and he is Associate Medical Director of Patient Safety and a consultant gynecologist in Basildon University. Is that right? Have I got that right?
That's correct. Thank you for having me in your
I'm
program.
so glad you're here because this is a topic that I have no experience of, and I'm going to get all the information and experience from both of you.
Right.
It's quite interesting that we decided quite a while ago to actually do this program on sex on The Woman Show. And it's by pure coincidence that on the day that we chose to do it, Hugh Hefner has been announced that he passed away. And he's known to be a pioneer of sexual liberalization, an hedonist, a happy man, which says sex keeps you happy, self-styled godfather of the sexual revolution. He died at 91. Now, it made me ask the question, 91, and still living this kind of life, is it possible? Does it make your life longer? Either of you, does it make it longer to have sex? Is it a good thing? Does it extend your life? Does it make you better?
Well, sex is a form of exercise, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you die at 91 and you've been having sex from the age of, whatever, 16, perhaps for him, that's the way he gets his cardio exercise.
Yes.
Because you do exert yourself. It depends on how virile you are and how strong you are and how attractive your partner is. So if you can keep going on and on and on, maybe that's what's kept him
going for so long. Exactly. Well, he always looked as if he was having a great time, didn't he? Yeah. I mean, on the other side of that, did you want to add something to that?
Yes, from a psychotherapy point of view, I mean, sex and orgasm slams all the dopamine receptors in the brain, and it gives us endorphins, feel-good factors, so it gives us dopamine and endorphins. So that could, if not prolong life, make it for a more meaningful, happy life, certainly.
Okay, so that in effect leads into the next question, which is on the other side of it, which is that if you are not having sex and you are, you know, celibate, does your life shorten as a result of it? Does that mean that you're not going to be able to extend your existence? You know, in the same way?
No, I don't think so. I mean, if you look at the Roman Catholic Church, where that's where you find most people who are celibate.
Yes.
The Pope, for example, they live into their 80s, into their 90s, and being celibate doesn't shorten your life whatsoever. I don't think it does.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good thing for some of us then.
Yeah.
No, I think that I don't think it does either.
Yeah.
And sometimes some of the more negative sides of balancing a relationship and an intimate relationship, divorce, separations, all sorts of things, finding a new partner, that they can You know, they can have negative stresses as well. So maybe being celibate doesn't shorten life.
Okay. All right then, because you know, on the other side of things, I've heard that as well as sex, that sex was 10% physical and 90% mental. So what I'd like you to do is tell me or educate us on the various health reasons that can impact on our sexual experience, and how people may not know that this is causing them to not actually enjoy or participate in their sexual activities.
Yeah, I think the very first thing that you would get when a man or a woman says they're opposite sex, there's some chemical attraction, which later on can lead to arousal, and that arousal goes on beyond that into the act itself. But like you said, there are some medical conditions that can affect sex or a man or a woman's sexual ability. If you take people who are hypertensive, there are some medication they do give them that knocks off their libido. Diabetes as well can have an effect on sexual function.
Is that once again affecting the libido, or because it's dealing with some of the
libido, then blood supply, peripheral vascular disease? You need blood to flow to the male.
You're saying a lot of big words here.
Yes.
The people are going to wonder what they are.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to explain now. You need blood to flow to the male organ to get it rigid.
Yes.
And if the blood vessels are knackered, damaged and narrowed, then you won't get blood flowing into there. Then you don't get that rigidity that you get with erection.
Right.
And that can affect sex. Again, if you have neural damage, some neuropathy, injury to your nerves, it can affect sexual function. Then, and like you would know, there are external stresses of life. Stress at work, war, famine, all of these things do affect sexual function.
Okay, so basically you're saying that if you've got diabetes, if you've got high blood pressure, or even low blood pressure,
and the medication you
and
take,
you're on medication, that could be a problem. Because I remember a friend of mine telling me that he was on, you know, he went to the doctor and they said to him, you know, he would have to take this high blood pressure tablets. And as a result of taking it, this would be the side effect. So it's like, do I lose my ability or do I stay alive? And that was the option he had. He decided that it was better to stay alive and deal with the matter in different ways.
But the good thing is that there are some tablets that you can take. You don't, if you discuss it with your doctor, that look, you're married, you wouldn't want your marital duties to be lacking. Can you change my drugs for me?
Yes.
There are other drugs that don't affect sexual function.
So, but I mean, if you are, say, taking these medicines that go the other way, can you then take something that would, you know, because the happy pill is out, isn't it? You know, the Viagra pill. Is there a problem with taking that whilst you're taking other medicine?
Well, with the Viagra, what it does, it dilates the vessels and lets blood flows. You've got to have the interest for it to be effective. So, for example, you find men who have no medical problems who go online to buy Viagra. It's not advisable. If you don't have that interest, that arousal, attraction, no matter if you take Viagra, it's not going to help, because you talked about the 10% emotional. If the emotions are not there...
Well, I'm saying that the emotion is 90%.
90%.
And so only 10% physical.
Yeah, so if the emotion is not there, if you take Viagra, nothing is going to happen. You have to be interested in it.
That's funny, because I thought, and most people would think, that once you take the medicine, everything works and you're good to go.
What do you think?
No, it's not the case. I think many people who initially aren't attracted to each other, if they then develop intimacy and an emotional connection, which sometimes is very lacking in this day and age, because of the way society is, or because of lack of education, that they don't develop that connection or don't know how to.
Yeah.
In schools, there's a very basic sex education for children, but
Yes.
they don't teach the emotional side of things. They don't teach how to manage intimacy,
At
how to
all.
manage relationships, how to deal with breakups.
I'm actually glad that you brought that up, because I would say that I was never taught anything in school except for what you're all learning from your other children in schools, and that's not really education. But I think earlier on you were giving me an example of a new system that was being adopted or
It
part
was,
adopted.
yes, it was a TV program actually, and it was a Belgian lady who came across, and she went to Lancashire,
Yes.
and she was educating 13-year-old and 14-year-old boys and girls in school. And the first episode of the program in the series, she discovered that we were showing people how to put a condom on a penis, but the female genitalia weren't allowed to be shown in classroom, and the teachers were quite horrified that this may be going to be introduced.
Right.
And so people do get to know sometimes about the male anatomy in a very basic way, but nothing at all about the female sexual equipment.
Which leads you into your...
What I'll say, I mean, there's not much to
Yeah.
the male anatomy. It's just a stick, if I can use that word. Whereas the female anatomy is more complex.
Yeah.
It's a small area, and you've got two major orifices, the front passage and the back passage. And one thing is, men don't know women's anatomy.
You heard it
So,
here first.
yeah.
Men do not know female
Females'
anatomy.
anatomies.
So what you're saying is that they don't know where to put anything.
That's correct.
Yeah.
The struggle.
You're nodding your head. You seem to
They
understand
do
that.
struggle.
Okay.
And again, you see the distance between the vagina and the anal orifice is very short.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, some people have sex in the dark. The lights are off, and you don't know where you're going. And there's this joke about men. I think it's a song by Gladys Knight, or one of the singers, that if you put some hair around the toilet seat,
Which
the men will know where to.
They're still missing.
Yeah, no, no, they won't miss it. They will know where to go. But talking seriously, I think men, we don't get taught about female anatomy in school, and I think that's one thing that needs to be addressed.
So you would advocate that is
Yes,
done.
yeah.
But I mean, apart from learning about female anatomy, I think one of the strong things is to learn about the emotional side,
That's
Yes.
correct.
which causes a lot of problems between the relationships of men and women. But we are going to go to a break right now, and we will be back to continue our discussion on sex, secrets, satisfaction, and setbacks.
The woman.
You have a very strong calling. You do great things. Ojidalagbara. So you're not stronger than before.
Praise the Lord!
Hallelujah! I have been praying to the Lord for the past 3 years for my wife to join me here in London.
Amen.
And as we have it now, look, my God has done it. Look at my wife, Linda, has now joined me in the boat.
Mrs. Boomy, are you aware that your husband's accused of not sleeping with just one, but 8 young virgins?
Tell your neighbor, God is here.
They want to ride big cars, fly in jets, and we, the members, suffer for it.
I am working hard to keep the few members of our church left. Why would I be happy?
It's just the work of the devil trying to bring down the man of God. The woman.
Hello and welcome to The Woman Show. Thank you for staying with us where we're talking about sex, secrets, satisfaction and setbacks. We've now been looking at the setbacks in the first part of the program where we're looking about the things that actually hold you back from having a full experience in your sex lives. Now the number to call is 0208 808 0693 and the phones are open for you to call and ask any of my experts any questions concerning your view on sex or questions that you've always wanted to ask but haven't been able to find someone to talk to about. Now, I'm going to turn to yourself because we've just been looking at the physical aspects of our sexual activity. You know, you wouldn't believe that sex is something that everybody participates in at some point in their lives, although I know you're going to come up and tell me about some people that haven't. You'll always tell me. But I want to go to the 90% that I was talking about earlier on, where I said that it's 90% mental. Now, what stops us or creates barriers in our minds? Because if we've got to clear that in order to enjoy what we're doing. What have you experienced in your counselling and psychotherapy?
I see people with problems in all areas of sex, including addiction or obsessive use of pornography, all sorts of things. The big thing that stops people is fear and guilt and shame, and
Yes.
Guilt and shame can start at
Which
a
are
very
the secrets, basically.
the secrets,
Yes.
guilt and shame, and they
Yeah.
paralyse people. That can start really early on, from potty training, a mum telling a child, you know, that's dirty or that's naughty. And children, boys and girls, as toddlers, they're babies, they grow up, they learn to explore their bodies,
Yes.
and mums will say, don't touch that, you know, you'll go to hell, or that will be chopped off, or you'll go blind. And this stays with people.
Yes.
And some families, they don't mean to, some of them, but there's a lot of secrets, guilt and shame in the family system, which leads to dysfunction. So there's that area of things.
So basically, because the child is, you know, of course it doesn't know parts of it, it's seen strange things happen. So it's searching with its hands and it's
Yes.
getting to know its body.
Yeah.
So of course the parents are passing on their guilt or their own ideas of how they were brought up, isn't it?
Yes, carried shame, we call
Yes.
it, and it's carried from parent to child, and the
Yes.
child then carries the parent's
Yes.
shame. So that can have long-lasting effects, and when people come to puberty and exploring sexual relationships, they have this with them.
So they have them as hang-ups, what we would call hang-ups.
Absolutely, hang-ups,
Yes.
yes. And then they bring them to a relationship, and not all first relationships or sexual encounters are successful, and then people add to the carried shame, and they add their own shame to it, and so on and so forth. Boys tend to start to watch pornography at a very early age. We're exposed to things like that, which have a great effect on people's sexual development.
Yeah.
Children as young as 7 see pornography now, 7 to 13. And
you know,
that's
something that's concerning me with the pornography, sorry to interject here, is that people are getting a weird notion of what sex is about. When really this is not it at all. It's something that's been, you know, in a sense, enhanced, fabricated, enlarged, and made more than it really is. And so, you know, children are, as you rightly say, getting access to this, and then things are getting worse further down the line. Have you seen any situations arise out of that have been quite tragic?
I have. I see quite a lot of boys in their late teens, and they've been exposed to pornography at a very early age. Either the parents have left it lying around, or it's been on some search engine on a family website, internet site, or they've found it themselves. And their nervous system and their brains aren't really developed to accept this sort of information, and it becomes very confusing and conflicting for them, because they're just children and they're looking at real adult stuff. So they get into it, they get sucked in, they you know, and they get hooked in a way that their normal development with the opposite sex and with their own sexuality is hijacked. The brain becomes hijacked and it searches out more and more exciting things.
So what do you think we should do in terms of children and teaching them about sex? Because it's because they're not properly taught, that they're searching it out in areas that they shouldn't go. So what should we do you think? What changes could we make?
I think there's a lot parents can do, but isn't done. Increasingly, children are given computers. They have telephones, their mobile phones. They access it. I'm not suggesting parents need to stalk their children, but some general education in the family home, and parental monitors on computers.
I'm going to cut in here and just say that I have a call from Fumi. Hello, Fumi. You are on the Woman Show. Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening, Fumi. Thank you for calling in. Where are you calling from?
I just wanted to ask, the psychiatrist was saying there that children watching pornography from such an early age, that this has an impact on them. And I was just wondering, how does that work? Because not just children, but men. How does that work? Because most men will say that they learn from the pornography, but then how does it have a negative impact on them going forward?
Yes, it's a really, really good question for me. Children's brains aren't equipped for this sort of graphic detail. It's traumatic to the brain. It can sometimes be classed, if we label such things as trauma. They often end up as porn addicts later on in life, and those sort of addictions are built on guilt and shame because these things are done in secret, because they know it to be wrong. But it has quite a devastating effect on children growing up. I don't want to scapegoat men, but men, 70% of people with sex addictions are male, and the other 30% are female, and often this happens in development. It affects relationships because they expect women to do or men to do all the sorts of things that they see. They think this is normal. They lose out on learning about real intimacy in relationships, and they confuse sex with love, and they confuse intimacy with sex, and it becomes very difficult for them. And they often go out and ask girls I've known boys that I've seen in my clinic to ask girls to do something really outlandish that they've seen on a first date, and the girl has run screaming, and the boy has actually not known what he's done wrong.
But then, within Fumi, are you still there? Hello, Fumi. Thank you so much, Fumi, for calling in. But extending on her question, which was, how does this, grow within the adult now? Because when you're a child doing that, now you've become the adult, and say you get married. You do form some sort of relationship, you get married. How does that affect your marital relationship?
I think when you develop a habit, which you do in secret, which your wife doesn't even know about, then it can affect the marital relationship. And again, if the wife or your partner gets to find out about it, she's going to feel like, oh, aren't I satisfying him, or the other way around? And again, that brings in some psychological differences between husband and wife, or man and woman. And I think one of the problems is we don't talk about sex.
I think it's the repression really that is of concern. That because I think you know, there was a case that you mentioned sometime when we were all talking about the I think it was even a pastor, and his wife had come in actually for something else.
Yes, for something else.
And she had come in because of her obesity. Was it obesity or drinking? One of the two?
Eating disorder.
Could you just
client came in, and she'd come to see me for compulsive eating, and she had this problem, and she was doing really, really well. And towards the end of her stay and her treatment, she brought her husband in, and he was very keen to support her and help her, and they were talking just like we are, only two with the therapist present.
I'm going to Sorry, just hold your question
Yes.
because we have a caller that's coming and we'll continue afterwards. Hello, Linda. Hi, Linda. Where are you calling from, Linda?
I'm calling from London.
Okay, you're welcome.
I just want to give a contribution, actually.
All right,
The
please do.
contribution is when Jackie was saying something about parents and putting a lock on children's phone.
Yes.
I think the right thing for parents to do is when you get your subscription, ask them to give you what they call a parental control. When you have that, it will be able to help you the whole house. Like in my family house with all my kids, we all have to use the same ISP.
Yes.
And I made sure that we have a parental control on the ISP.
Thank you.
So as long as you're using our own network, you cannot access some certain web pages.
Yes.
You cannot access pornography, for example, because
Exactly.
that is the only way forward for
Absolutely.
parents to be able to control what their children can access.
Yes.
For you to ask them to let you know whenever they will not do it, they even go behind. So the best thing for parents to do is
to lock it
work
down.
with a subscriber of your ISP to have a parental control.
Thank you so much, Linda, for contributing that. You're absolutely right that parental control can be administered straight from the ISP and everyone should adopt that. Yes, thank you so much. But continuing on your story.
Yes, the couple, and she was doing really well with her compulsive eating, which is an addiction, and she was feeding her feelings really because she wasn't feeling good about herself, more shame and guilt. So they came in and he was telling her how he would help her. We'll go shopping together, you won't buy this, you won't buy that, we'll weigh you, we'll do this. And he was micromanaging her, and then I said, would you like to say anything to your husband? And she said, yes, why haven't we had sex for 20 years?
Wow.
20 years?
20
Yes.
years, yeah. It was like
So really, in effect, the eating disorder was as a result of, maintaining that, secret of not having sex, or, repressing her own desires in a sense, or the rejection even.
And they're taking comfort in.
Yes,
Yeah,
comfort eating,
comfort
feeding
eating,
her
yeah.
feelings, nurturing herself because she wasn't having that feeling from her husband.
Right.
And this major problem that had gone on for 20 years, and he was becoming more angry over the years, micromanaging her and trying to, and she was just withdrawing into food. And as you say, developing in this eating disorder, to compensate.
What was the reason for his behaviour? Did you look into that at the time?
No, she was the client.
Yes.
So, but they have gone on to work things out. They're doing
Right.
very well. But it was shame, guilt, secrecy that stopped them from coming forward for help.
And really, at the bottom of it would have been the way in which they had processed or been taught about sex.
Yes.
And I think that that's an important thing that we all need to look into as time goes on.
Yes.
All right.
Linda raised some information there about parental control.
Yeah.
We talk about sleepovers.
Ah, yes.
Children from the age of 6, 7, 8 go for sleepovers,
Yeah.
and parents don't know what happens. I mean, every young child now has a telephone, they've got a TV, access, iPad,
everything.
and I think parents have got to be careful of what peer pressure can do. If you go sleeping over,
Yes.
what happens after midnight to a youngster? It's something parents should be very cautious about, letting your children out of sight, really,
Yes, for
Yeah.
too
because
long.
that's where
Things can go wrong. I'm
yeah.
going to come back to that in just one moment. We have another caller. Molly, good evening. Thank you for calling. What's your Where are you calling from?
To echo what Linda, the other caller, said about parental control.
Yes.
But I also believe that as parents, we can do things or say things to avoid to expose our children. But I had an incident where my son just went into year 7 now when he was in year 6. And they introduced sex education,
Yes.
and I demanded to know the curriculum of this because I wanted my children to stay as innocent as possible. So I wanted to know what they were going to study. So I looked at the curriculum, so I had to choose which subject my children went into. But as a result of my children being exposed to this sex education, it came a lot of inappropriate actions within the classroom where the children were now texting, formed a WhatsApp group, and were saying all sorts of inappropriate things.
When you
that
say
they've been learning in the sex education or exposed to, I know that it was a very clear educational curriculum which was very fair, the one that I chose my son to go into. But then the fact that, they were exposed into these different
can I just ask, Molly?
Hello? And the result was that they were texting inappropriate things, and
okay,
one
Molly.
of the girls was texting my son.
Molly, just one moment. When you say that they were in a WhatsApp group, who started the WhatsApp group? Was it something that the school started, or one of the students? Because you're saying that they were 6 years old. Did you say? Hello, Molly.
Yes.
You were saying that your children were now exported into a WhatsApp group. Yes?
Yeah.
Well, who started the WhatsApp group? Was it something that the children started themselves, or was it something that was produced by the school?
Yeah, where it started off very innocently.
No, by the school?
And stuff like that. But since they started that sex education, it then turned into very inappropriate things. So it just happened that I took my phone, because I always check my children's phone once in a while, and I saw a thread of very inappropriate things that were being said, including my own son as well.
Right.
So I had to march to the school and say, this is what I've been fearing as a parent.
Okay, so Molly, as a parent, what age do you think is the best age for training your children in giving them sexual education at school? And what do you think it should consist of?
I think the age they should be is, to be honest, I think when they are doing GCSE, to be honest, for me anyway as a parent, because I think sex education should be also taught at home, not only in school. Because
when you say taught at home, when you say taught at home, at what age? Because I would consider that waiting till they were doing GCSEs, which would be around about 15, 16, is quite a far distance when you hear of young girls getting pregnant when they're 11, which means that they're much more sexually active earlier, which is being confirmed by Dr. Rotimi here. So what education would you be giving your children between 6 and 16? Have I lost her? Okay. But I mean, I throw that question out to yourselves, because I know when she was saying, was it 16? Yeah. You were a bit horrified by that. Why?
Well,
she said GCSEs, and GCSEs is 15.
Yeah,
is that
about 15.
Right?
Yes. Yeah. Well, from my point of view, children as young as 7 are watching sex on the internet, looking at images. They're accessing it. They have these mobile phones. They have access to technology. So it's leaving it far too late, in my opinion. What do you think, Rotimi?
I think not every parent is technologically savvy to be able to control what their children look at. We live in a very liberal society now. Even adverts have some sexual connotation to it. Even when you go to the shops, in children's sections, you have sexual wares. I think the earlier one starts, the better. I think as a parent, you will know when your child is ready to listen to some of these things. But if you don't do it, their mates will tell them.
Yeah. As I was told.
Yeah, their mates will tell them.
I'm going to cut in here, and we have another caller. Aaron?
Hi.
Hi, Aaron. How are you doing? Where are you calling from, Aaron? Thank you for calling. Where are you
hi. My thing is, I'm a student. I'm 21 years of age, and quite embarrassingly, I'm still virgin.
Okay.
Um,
Nothing
and,
embarrassing.
What it is that I've been in like many situations where I could have lost my virginity, but I've just been like, every time it's come down to it, I've kind of not been able to perform.
Okay.
I just wanted to know if this was like a normal thing for guys my age.
Okay. 21. Would you like to?
It's a very valid
Thank you,
question.
Erin. Thank you for your question. Just hang on, we've got the answer coming.
Yes, I think maybe we'll answer together. But from my perspective, it's a very valid question, and well done for ringing in, because I suspect you're not the only one that suffers from this problem. So it's important to raise it for yourself and for other people. Yes, anxiety, stress, tension, all these have an impact on what actually happens. There's so much pressure put on children, teenagers and young men from such a young age to perform, to do things correctly, to perform even when they don't want to overcome the hurdle of virginity. Lots and lots of stress can lead to anxiety, pressure. There's lots and lots of help available, and it's a problem that can be resolved in a quite short space of time. If the appropriate help is given. I'm going to pass over to Rotimi.
Yeah. It would appear that he is willing to do it, and he's probably giving great thought to it, that tonight I've got to do X, Y, Z. Now, when you think, the blood flow goes to your brain.
Yeah.
Now, for sexual activity, like we said earlier on, you do need blood flow to the male organ.
Yeah.
But if you are anticipating and, oh, I've got to perform, or is she going to be okay? How is it going to go? I think when you get to that stage, you're so worked up.
Yeah.
You're thinking about it. Right? The emotion is not there's the thought of, will I do well? Will she accept me? Will I be a failure? And when you do that, it just messes the whole
thing up.
Yeah, I think relaxation. What do you think about relaxation?
It may sound a bit crazy, but mindfulness and relaxation techniques are very, very helpful, very popular, combined with a short course of cognitive behavioural therapy to overcome the thought processes that build up and build up. As Rotimi said, we ruminate over it, and the more we prolong having intercourse, the worse the anxiety gets.
Erin, does that answer your question? Okay, we've lost it.
Okay.
Thank you for calling, Erin. It's a beautiful question.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, I'm also, because before doing this program, I had a lot of people giving me questions, and extending on his question is the pressure, as you say, to perform and to find the appropriate person, because your inexperience going to somebody else's inexperience, there's a fear as to what you're meant to do, and then you find people landing in the hands of, say, the older woman or the older man in order to get the assistance and help that they need. You know, how appropriate is that? How much do you find that is a problem, an issue in your dealings? Do you find that is what's happening out there? Is there a greater, situation arising in that way that causes later problems in the ability to go with your own age group or whatever?
The young men that I tend to see tend to have become more and more isolated and cut off from real relationships because of the internet, but then the shame and the guilt and the embarrassment. Society is structured these days that people don't do things that we were talking in the car on the way here. They don't do the things they used to do, and they tend to join WhatsApp groups or meet up in different ways, internet dating and so on and so forth. And the anxiety that comes with that. So that I think that lots of young men not lots, but lots that I see, they do tend to hook up with older women for the experience. I don't actually personally see a great problem in that unless that is going to be their pattern, and then it affects reproduction, families settling down, fertility later in life. Rotimi?
Well, you know,
I'm going to take us to a break just as I'm getting another call. In actual fact, I've got another call that's just coming from Molly. I think she's come back. Hello, Molly. How are you? Good to have you back again.
Sorry, my phone got cut off.
That's okay.
I just heard you were asking a question about how old my children were. They were 10 and 11. And also, yes, I agree with both the councillors about 16 being a bit older for them to learn. But I feel like 16 GCSE in school, they should start learning sex education. But sex education, I believe, should be taught at home as well.
But,
you know, so
Molly,
like what the other the gentleman said, you know when your children are ready, when they want to talk about things. I'm very open with my children. I encourage them to ask questions. I encourage them to talk about their body changes and everything that goes on with their bodies.
But Molly, that only works where you feel competent to do so. If you're a parent who's quite shy and has been brought up in a limited situation where you have body challenges and your whole perspective is different, you may not be able to do what you're doing. So that means that those children are going to lose out. How do you deal with this? All right. I think we're going to go to a break right now and see you on the other side.
The woman.
Get ready to rep your team. Pathway Sports and Team Nigeria UK presents the first ever The Tasty African Rep Your Team Fans Party on Friday, November 10th, 2017 at Old Stratford Town Hall, London E15. Come and join us for an exciting night filled with fun, music, food, football auction, comedy, and all the footy madness you can imagine. Dress in your favorite football team's jersey and find out which team has the best fans. Tickets start from £25 and are available online at eventbrite.com and via www.shubes.com. For more info, call 0333 5777 311 or 0744 811 2113 or log on to www.teamnigeriauk.com. You don't want to miss it. All proceeds raised will be donated to Cure Leukemia Charity, feeding.
Hello and welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. We've been talking about sex, secrets, satisfaction and setbacks. Now earlier on we were talking about the secrets and discovering the various things that prevent people from actually enjoying this wonderful activity that should be open to all. And now I know that during the break we were talking about further setbacks.
That's correct.
That you wanted to highlight on. So please.
Yeah, we were talking about the effect of recreational drugs on sex, smoking, the use of cannabis, excessive alcohol intake.
Well, I mean, I'm told that these things are supposed to enhance it.
Oh, it doesn't.
Take away your inhibitions. I thought,
no,
if you have a little bit of a drink, then
a little bit of a drink.
Yes.
But when you go overboard, when you have alcoholic addiction, alcoholism, or excessive use of cannabis, excessive use of alcohol, it just knocks you off, knocks the desire. You even fall asleep easily. So it's not something young people or even old people should get involved in.
But these things that you've mentioned, go towards the men in terms of what they physically cannot do. What about the women? What happens to them? What can they? What do they take that actually inhibits what they may feel or their desire? And how do you overcome this?
Women tend to some women have excessive intake of codeine-based medication, painkiller medication.
And this is quite rampant.
In America, it is huge. It's one of the biggest addictions in the United States. And women in the UK and other countries are accessing painkillers.
But is this something that they're learning, or they're using it? I mean, you know, if you're taking tablets for headache or pain, you know, you normally take one or two or as directed. So what they're doing is going beyond the direction point.
Yes, they are, and they take a lot, and it calms them down. Some of them are opiate based. Cocodamol has some heroin-like properties. It gives them a sense of ease and comfort, and whatever affects the nervous system to shut off pain also shuts off pleasure. So they find that they have no libido, side effects of opiate-based painkillers, no libido, no interest in sex.
But there are other things. What about menopause? Does that affect the way in which a woman would react? You know, because these are natural things that happen.
Yes, libido. When you get to the menopause, that's when you stop having periods. Women tend to lose their libido. That's because the estrogen, the female hormone, the levels are very low. And again, the area in the front passage is dry. It causes a lot of pain if you try and have a marital relationship. But there is treatment for it. People try all sorts of things, lubricants, hormone replacement therapy. And we've been talking about sex. Sex is just not about what we think it is. Because I've seen people in their 60s, 70s in my clinic who say, well, we do other things and we enjoy doing other things. But definitely the menopause is a big issue.
One of the things that we talked about when we were earlier on was about the other things that can then cause various diseases that we said we would try to mention, at least just for educational reasons. So could you just go through some of them?
I think one of them will be oral sex.
Yes.
The virus, the human papilloma virus, which causes cervical cancer and causes genital warts. If a man has got the virus and you practice oral sex, then most likely the woman is going to get viral warts in the throat or...
Well, this is why they always say to practice safe sex.
Safe sex, that's correct, But I think quite a lot of people are not aware of the risk of that because people don't, you can't see a virus.
No.
But it is there, and we do know that the virus causes cancer, and it causes cancer of the throat as well, So it's something people should be on the lookout for or try and avoid. Practice safe sex is the key word, really.
Okay. So, I mean, the thing is that, as we're coming towards the end of our program, is there any advice that you'd like to give to those who may be seeking help in the various addictions that you've mentioned or the various difficulties that they're having from your perspective, Jackie?
Yes, we've talked about secrecy and shame. I think it's enormously important to try and deal with those issues. What I would like to say is help is available for almost all of the issues that we've talked about. From a psychological point of view or a physical point of view, we can offer CBT, we can offer DBT, dialectical behavioural therapy, we can offer mindfulness. There are online self-help groups. People don't necessarily have to pay for help. They can access some resources online.
I think, the other thing is that people don't always want to be visual.
No.
So is it possible to get assistance without being in a round circle with several other people who are suffering the same thing, or even sometimes seeing the counsellor because you may feel, inhibited in some way?
I think the best therapeutic benefit is from talking to another person about a problem. However, telephone counselling is available. That may be paralysingly difficult for some people. I hear you. Online self-help support. People can register online. Just Google the topic that you're looking for in this day and age. There are hundreds of thousands of people currently accessing support for the sorts of things that we've talked about as we sit here and speak. Help is available, and it needn't be too costly, and it needn't be too embarrassing. Overcoming that difficulty of, as we heard from one of the phone-ins, just picking up the phone and saying, this is a problem.
What I would say is sex is not a dirty word. And I would say, let's talk about sex. If there's any problem, either as a single man, woman, or as a couple, talk about it. Yeah. Even if it's in a marital relationship, then discuss it. It's when you hide it, the secrets, that it lingers on. And the longer it goes, the more difficult it becomes to overcome. And as Jackie has said, help is out there. And I would say, bring it in the open. For as long as you trust your doctor, or for as long as you trust your psychotherapist, then feel free to bring these problems out. I think that's the advice I will give.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you to all of you who have called in today. Thank you, Jackie, for being with us, and Dr. Rotimi. I'm really hopeful that I'm going to be able to bring you back in some format to actually flush out some of these topics in detail, because I think that there's still more to be talked about. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we've actually only just touched the iceberg really with this, and I hope that with what we have been talking about today, you've been able to gather something from it, because basically if you have secrets, they lead to setbacks and then minimize or diminish your satisfaction. So go out there and look again at the way in which you're actually doing things, and see whether you need to have a discussion with your partner first and then with a counsellor. Have a good evening. Take care now.